how to run a successful business and still have a life. My name is Stacey Morgan, and today's episode is brought to you by my Thrive Mastermind. Thrive is a 6-month mastermind program for women in business, women who are ambitious, women who have big goals, but perhaps need a little bit of accountability along the way. The 6-month program kicks off in April of every year and is a combination of group coaching and one-on-one coaching. And if you'd like to get on our waitlist, you can do that right now for next year's intake, 2022. Can you believe it? If you'd like to get on the waitlist, you can do that at simplystaceymorgan.com. Well, welcome to episode 21. 21 is my lucky number and my favorite number. So I'm super excited to be talking in episode 21 about something that I'm also passionate about and something that I also love, and that is taking time for self-care. Now, self-care is a bit of a roll your eyes type topic at the moment, as I'm sure you can understand. There are a lot of things going on in the world and a lot of things that are outside of our control. And self-care has become very necessary and a very necessary part of our lives, whether we run our own small business or not. But in small business land, taking time for self-care often feels pretty indulgent. And probably one of the reasons you're rolling your eyes at me when I mention self-care is because you think I'm way too busy to be able to take time for a bubble bath. I'm way too busy to book in a massage. So I don't need self-care. I'm doing okay as I am. And, you know, that mindset is something that I am totally guilty of. And it's not something that I can say that I've been able to break completely. But in today's episode, I want to share with you different things that I do in my life that I put the title or put the inverted commas around self-care for. And they're things that really help me. If I do them regularly enough, they help me keep myself pretty balanced and keep myself away from burnout. Because I'm not sure about you, but that feeling of overwhelm and that feeling of burnout and getting yourself to the point where you think you can't go on is something that I have experienced. And so to try and keep those feelings of burnout and overwhelm at bay, self-care is a really important part of my schedule that I am really conscious about making sure that it happens not just on a monthly or a yearly basis, but that I'm making sure I'm doing little things every day that are helping to make sure that I'm taking that time for self-care. So if you have the mindset of you don't have time for this, then I encourage you not to switch off now. I encourage you to stick with us, because there might be something that I'm doing that you could perhaps incorporate into your daily routine that could really help. And if I am able to impart just a little bit of knowledge that you can then go off and do yourself, then that is my work well done. So when we talk about self-care, we don't necessarily have to talk about a massage or a bubble bath. Like, they're the cliche things, right, that I mentioned before. But self-care can come in a number of forms, and it can be something that you don't have to broadcast, you don't have to put on your Insta story, you don't have to tell your friends about, but can be things that you do for yourself in order to make sure that you function well. And they don't have to be expensive. They don't have to be really time consuming. In fact, the things that help me the most are things that that I can do relatively cheaply and relatively quickly as well. So I'm going to start at the start of the day and kind of run through different things that work for me that could possibly also work for you through till the end of the day. And I guess, you know, being me, I'm going to go off on a couple of different tangents and jump from one thing to the next. But taking time in the morning is often, you know, the only time during the day that, as a mum, I don't have kids crawling at me and crawling on me. So I try and make a habit of getting up before the kids get up. And while that sounds exhausting, the way that I make that happen is that I'm really strict on my bedtime. So making sure that I am in bed, knowing that I'm going to have 8 hours of sleep, because 8 is kind of my magic number. I mean, 9 is beautiful and ideal and fantastic and considered a sleep in. But if you can get yourself into the habit of making sure you understand how much sleep you need, because sleep is self-care in itself, making sure you have enough sleep, you know what that magic number is, and that you are making sure that you are going to bed on time to ensure that you can get up at the time that, you know, gives you time for yourself. That is really important. So taking that time before everybody else rises to make a cup of tea, to stand outside if you possibly can, to take a deep breath, to look up to the sky or to look up to the trees, or to put your feet on the ground and really start your day in a really present, conscious way, is just one little thing that makes a massive difference. That I know that if I am doing this consistently, it really pays off for myself, for my own mental and emotional well-being, but also it pays off in my business. And I can really tell, and so can the people around me, when I'm not getting that done. So taking time in the morning before everybody else kind of crawls into bed with you and starts rummaging through the pantry wanting their breakfast, is really important. Taking a deep breath during that time, thinking about, okay, what have I got on today? Who's going to need me? Where am I going to need to put my energy? How much energy am I going to need? Is it going to be a really busy, full-on day? Am I going to be putting out a lot of energy? Am I going to need to conserve it now? And how am I going to get from point A to point B? Just being able to mentally set yourself up for that kind of stuff is really, really important. So I like to start my day well. Then the other things I do for self-care, most of it involves breath. So, before I jump out of the car, before I unclick my seatbelt, before I jump out of the car, I try and take a moment to take a couple of deep breaths. The fabulous Ali Garrison, you can find out more about Ali at aligarrison.com, is, such a guru for me in terms of taking time and being mindful. She says, whether you're hanging out the washing or you're doing the dishes, make sure you are there and you are breathing through that moment, and that you are conscious and that your mind is present exactly where you are. So I like to do that before I jump out of the car, because otherwise I feel like I jump into the car and buckle up and drive to the next place and out of the car and onto the next. Whereas just taking that moment and taking those couple of deep breaths, the people that you're going to meet or the appointment that you're going to is not, everything's not going to fall apart if you don't take 2 deep breaths before you jump out of the car. So I like to always try and do that and be mindful when I'm doing that. Ali talks about taking, every time you walk through a doorway, taking 2 deep breaths. And I think Ali maybe says 3, because you'll be surprised at how many times you walk through doorways in your day once you start to become conscious of it. So just being able to use your breath and to use that mindfulness and to make sure that you are really where you are at the time is really, really important when it comes to my self-care. At night, after the kids have gone to bed, if there's time and I have the energy, a bubble bath, as cliche as it is something that really works for me. Being able to unwind in water is really, really comforting and really peaceful for me. Otherwise, being able to take time to read. So, if I'm going to read in bed, then I'm going to read 2 pages and then I'm out. So I have books and books and books that are here in my office, and I have a chair in my office that is, my comfy chair. So I'd rather sit there and read a few pages before I go to bed as my own, form of self-care, knowing that if I just jump straight into bed, I probably wouldn't get through a lot, but I can get through, a chapter or even 3 or 4 pages, or it even just feels good just to read a page, to know that you've taken that time for yourself to do things. I think as mums, sometimes we martyr ourselves and say, we possibly don't have time for that. We couldn't possibly have time for that. We're so busy and so important and running around all the time, and there's lunches to be made and washing to be done and things like that. But even just sitting down and reading a page out of a book, I feel like, oh, okay, good. Yes, I had time for myself today, even if it was just that tiny smidgen of time. Self-care for me also means learning. So I do a lot of professional development, and we're going to be talking in the next couple of episodes about professional development and what that looks like for me as a business owner, but also as a person, for personal development. So if there's time in my day to be able to listen to a podcast, to be able to listen to an audiobook, so many people say to me, I don't have time to read. Getting audiobooks on your phone is so easy. And yes, it is an investment. You have to pay for it, and they're a little bit more expensive than buying the paperback. But hey, if it means you're going to get it read, then absolutely do it. And really good audiobooks have you hooked. You end up listening to it not just when you're, folding the washing, but you end up listening to it in the car, and then at every free moment that you have, because you get addicted to it and you get hooked. The last incredible audiobook I listened to was Green Lights by Matthew McConaughey. And how refreshing it was to listen to that incredible accent of Matthew's for 8 hours. If you haven't read that book, it's just fantastic. From business and life. And the book is excellent. I say download it immediately. But yeah, taking time to be able to listen to a book if you know that you don't actually have time to physically stop and go ahead and listen to it is so super important. So taking time for yourself, taking time to learn, taking time to use your brain is so important, but it's also really important to move your body. So self-care for me also means having time to actually move, having time to stretch, to make sure I close my rings on my Apple Watch, to make sure, that I've taken a walk around the block if I need, a second to process something. I know when COVID first hit, I couldn't, unless I was moving, I couldn't actually think. And there were so many big decisions that needed to be made in my business. I would have to say to Heath, can you just mind the kids for 15 minutes? I just need to walk around the block. And I'd do a lap of the block, because if I was moving, my brain would actually function. Whereas if I was just at home, I was getting completely overwhelmed. So if you find yourself in business having to make big decisions, or you find yourself feeling overwhelmed from the kids and they're at you and, everything's going on, being able to just take 10 minutes to yourself to just go outside and do a lap is so, so powerful. And self-care for me also means being able to get on my bike. And now I've got 2 bikes to choose from, because of course my beautiful blue bike that I ride into town for meetings and things is, my best form of self-care. And I can tell, if I haven't been on my bike for a little while, I can tell, everybody around me can tell. Getting on my bike is, for me, is success, because if in life I have the time and the brain space to know that I've got 20 minutes to ride into town rather than having to rush from one place to the next, then that is everything I could possibly want in my world. So getting on my blue bike, but also now I have a Peloton. So getting on the Peloton and taking 20 minutes to move, doing a 20-minute pop ride, or doing a 20-minute Broadway ride, or, getting energy from those fabulous instructors is also something that really fills me up, and I put in my self-care bucket now as well. So I hope that from all of those things that I've shared with you that kind of map you through my day, that you're able to pick out 1 or 2 things that can be adaptable for you and for your lifestyle. And of course, when it comes to big items of self-care, like, a 3-day weekend away, like, how luxurious. That's not something that I'm in a position to be able to do. But hey, if you can, I see people on Instagram doing it all the time, going up to a hut in the woods and just sitting and being. Go for gold. That sounds incredible. If you just have the kids can go to grandma and grandpa's for the weekend, and you can just have a night to yourself and do nothing, then that's self-care as well. If you can have some time away with girlfriends, that is self-care. I had the incredible opportunity of being able to go to Brisbane just for 3 days earlier in the year, and I was going to see shows. I was going to support an ex-student of mine who was performing with the Queensland Ballet, and I also was going to see a musical that one of my friends was part of, that was from her school. And what I intertwined into that trip was catch-ups, just dropping by people's houses, good friends of mine that I don't get to catch up with very often. And I cannot tell you how much that filled me up. And when I look back on it, it didn't really take a lot of effort. Yes, I did need to drive there. Yes, I did need to drive from place to place, but just dropping in and having a cup of tea with somebody who is really important to me, but I don't get to see often enough. And especially, in the time that we're at, we don't know when we're going to be able to see people and not going to be able to see people in the future. So it was so incredibly powerful for me and for my self-care. So I've kind of put on my wish list that I will get a chance to be able to drop in and do, a 2.5 day drop in with friends in different capital cities and different places around the country in the future, and make that something that I'm really conscious about doing, because it not only was it great to catch up, it really, really filled me up in terms of my own self-care and my own well-being. So what are you going to do for you in terms of your own self-care? What are you going to be able to do for yourself? What are you going to take time to do? Don't just listen to this episode and then jump out of the car or finish your walk and then that be it. Actually make a conscious effort to put just one thing into play between now and when you listen to the next episode. So in the next 7 days, what is one thing that you can do for yourself that will fill you up, that will recharge you a little bit, and that will give you longevity in your business and for yourself? I hope you can find something to do it. And if you do, I would love you to tell me about it. Jump into my DMs on Instagram. You can follow me at Simply Stacey Morgan. Of course, today's episode is brought to you by my Thrive Mastermind. We are halfway through our Thrive Mastermind. Actually, we're over halfway through our Thrive Mastermind at the moment. And we are heading towards graduation season, which is also very exciting. Thrive is a combination of group coaching and one-on-one coaching. We have special guests come in. We have a very active Facebook group where everybody's sharing each other's sharing challenges with each other, sharing everybody's wins and celebrating each other. It's a really beautiful community to be part of. And we only do it once a year. We open the doors in March of every year and we take a 6-month intake from April. So if you'd like to get on the wait list for Thrive for next year, if you're a small business owner, if you're a woman in business and you really want to be surrounded by other like-minded women, then I really encourage you to get on the wait list, and you can do that at simplystaceymorgan.com. And I encourage you to share this episode with any of your business besties. Perhaps you have people around you that you know should be taking a little bit more time for self-care that perhaps aren't. Perhaps this is an episode you would like to share with them. And this is episode 21. As this episode goes to air, I am taking some time off for myself because I'm having my appendix out. So you're having, whatever you're doing, you're having a better day than me currently. But I will be pre-recording episodes so that throughout my little bit of time off, you will still hear from me both on our YouTube channel and on the podcast as well. So I hope you're having a fabulous September. Take time for yourself, take time out to make sure that you can recharge and then put your very best self in the world. And I look forward to talking to you soon.